Hello and welcome to this week's video. My name is Nuska Taylor. Thank you so much for joining me. Before I get going on today's topic, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. When I was looking at the analytics, I think it was about 85% of people that watch my videos aren't subscribed. So please do subscribe. It costs you nothing and it just makes a huge difference to me with my channel and reaching more people. So thank you so much, but thank you to all of you who have subscribed, and also please like my videos, share them, comment if you enjoy them. So today I am talking about the hero's journey, which I have done a video on this previously, like a while ago, but I wanted to talk about this today as it relates to reclaiming your authentic speaking voice, which is really what I do. So I help clients reclaim their authentic speaking voice, both from the physical aspect of training the voice, training the muscles, releasing the muscles, but also it's really this inner transformation. It's this journey of self-discovery. And so the hero's journey is just perfect for understanding this transformational journey, this transformational path. And actually, if you want to create change, lasting change in anything in your life, not just your voice, you want to lose weight, you want to make more money, you want to find love, whatever it is, and you want it to be really authentic and lasting, you have to go on this path. There is no shortcut to avoiding parts of ourselves, these parts of ourselves that we try and avoid. You have to face off with yourself, which is the shadow work. The hero's journey was really popularized by Joseph Campbell, the late mythologist. He was heavily influenced by Carl Jung, hence my interest in this, because the psychology I use behind my voice coaching is Jungian psychology. So that's why this is the perfect model for me to really help you understand the journey of discovering who you really are and therefore discovering your true voice. So the hero's journey has inspired countless ancient myths, books, stories, plays, films, and it's really used often as this story template, which you will, when we start to go through this, start to see this pattern in pretty much any film that you watch. And I'm just going to simplify it first of all before we go into more depth. So there's three main stages to the hero's journey. Now, Joseph Campbell had 17 stages to his. I'm going to be talking about this from the 12-stage process, which is Chris Vogler's version, because I thought 17 stages might be a little bit too long, but just to know there's different versions of this. But let's just talk very quickly about the sort of overarching approach and the three main stages. Regardless of which version you pick, you're always going to have these three main stages. So the first stage is the hero departs, leaves the familiar, ordinary world, or as we might say, leaves their comfort zone. And you are the hero. And this is why we love watching these films and plays and reading these books, because we, whether we're conscious of this or not, see ourselves in these across cultures. So this hero archetype resides in all of our psyches. It's worth mentioning as well that this process is a soul's journey, is a higher self journey. This is not an ego journey. This is not about boosting the ego to make it feel better. This is a journey of you really discovering the truth of who you are, which the ego is anti you discovering who you really are. Hence all my work around the voice and you reclaiming your authentic voice, because you can't reclaim it when you're coming from ego. So anyway, back to the three stages. So the first stage is the departure, leaving the ordinary worlds. And this is where the hero goes on an adventure. And this is very common in pretty much any film that you watch. The second stage is the initiation. So the hero will learn some new skills, get some new knowledge, and win some kind of victory with this newfound knowledge or skill. And then the final stage is the returning to the ordinary world, and they return home transformed and inspiring the people around them and bringing great teaching and wisdom back to their home. So as I said, I'm sure you can see this even very basically in pretty much any play, film, story that you read. This structure is there. But whether it's a fictional hero going on a journey or whether you as the hero in your story are going on a journey, it is ultimately a journey of self-discovery and inner transformation. And this is why you have to go on this journey if you want to create lasting change. But it is challenging. You have to face off with yourself in ways that you never thought you would have to. But make no mistake, this journey is incredibly challenging. It requires a lot of courage, a lot of resilience, and a lot of inner strength, because you are having to face off with your shadow, like fight the dragon, enter the cave, whatever the analogy is you want to use. And we see all of that in film all the time. So from the voice perspective, then, it's really a process of individuation. It's discovering who we really are from this child that was really programmed from a very young age to speak and behave in a particular way in the world. This is who you are. This is how you should sound, how you should behave, how you should look, what you should do. So we've all been given different messaging around what is and isn't acceptable. But ultimately, it's not really our voice. We have learned to use this incredible instrument to just function in the world, to survive, to get our needs met, as we had to as children. But we've really lost the connection to ourselves. And then we wonder as adults why we really struggle to have freedom, to have expression, to have power in our voice. Because from the ego perspective, that is not safe. The ego wants you to stay comfortable. It wants you to stay in the ordinary world, using this analogy. It doesn't want you to fully express yourself. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean it won't let you be loud, because for some people, being loud is a defense. It's a way of getting attention because they don't actually feel important. But again, it's really not making anything wrong. It's us allowing all parts of ourselves to be expressed: loud, quiet, fast, slow, mumble, expressive, fill in the blanks. So we're not afraid to be perceived in a particular way. We're not afraid to express ourselves in a particular way. But for most of us, our vocal habits are so unconscious and they're so on autopilot. We're just using our voice in the way we've really been conditioned to. So let's look at the 12 steps. So I'm going to put them up on the screen so you can see them. As I say, you'll see lots of different versions of this online, but this is essentially the basic kind of structure that you will see across whatever version that you come across. So the first stage is the ordinary world. So this is your comfort zone. So you could think of this as, this is your life right now. Now, your comfort zone isn't necessarily comfortable. You could be uncomfortably comfortable, but it's familiar. So it's your job, it's your relationship, it's how much money you make, you know, your day-to-day routine, what you eat, what you do. It's all very comfortable. Even if you're not really happy, there's an element of comfort. So that's stage one. So in a play or a film, we would normally see the hero or the character in their sort of day-to-day life. As the film starts, we will see them in their kind of normal surroundings. So stage two is they will get a call to adventure. So this is really interesting because I would say for sort of most people, the call to adventure is almost enforced. So maybe they lose their job. Maybe their marriage ends. Maybe someone they love gets really sick or dies, or maybe they get really sick and nearly die. So something happens that shakes up their world. And this is the moment that they start to think, oh my God, life is short. What am I doing? I really want to be doing X, Y, Z. Now, just to give you an example of this, and also in my own life, I mean, this was the absolute catalyst for me. The catalyst for me for doing all of this work and really putting myself out there in a much bigger way as a singer and as a coach was the death of my parents. And I had never experienced anything like that before. I'd never lost anyone I loved, a pet, but nothing like losing a parent, and then nothing like losing the other parent like shortly after. So that was my like life shaking me up. But just to give you another example, I worked with a client, this was quite a long time ago when I was living in Melbourne, and she had always wanted to sing. So I trained as a singing teacher I do still do some singing teaching, but predominantly work with speakers these days. But she'd come to me because she'd recently been diagnosed with quite, I'm not sure it was stage 4, but she was quite sick with cancer. And she'd always wanted to sing, but she spent her whole life putting it off, putting it off. No, I'm not good enough. No, I can't do that. And finally, because now she had cancer and she didn't know how long she had to live, it was like, well, I've got nothing to lose now. So now I'm going to have singing lessons. So that's what I mean. Normally we are pushed into this. Sometimes, and I would say this is quite unusual, we just have such a burning passion for something that we are willing to go down this path willingly. But I would say for most of us, there is something that forces us to go down this path. Now, as we're going to discover, not everyone will go the full length of this path because it's really challenging and threatening to the ego. But a lot of us, particularly if we have had these really challenging times in life, like the loss of loved ones or a serious health issue, this is the time that we might think, okay, life is short. What do I really want to be doing? So that's an example of this, that call to adventure. So stage 3 is refusal of the call. So this is where you're like, okay, I really want to have singing lessons, or I really want to do a TED talk, or I really want to start speaking around the world and doing keynotes. So we're like, yep, okay, I'm going to do this. And we start Googling and we start sort of looking up coaches and courses and all this kind of thing. And then the reality of it sets in. And I see this a lot with people because they will say, oh, yes, I really want to work on my voice. And then the reality of it comes in. I'm like, okay, let's work together. And then suddenly they ghost me. They disappear. I'm really busy. I'll come back to you. I'm going away for a month. The month comes and goes. I don't hear anything from them. A year comes and goes. I don't hear anything from them. So this is where there's that refusal of the call. So we have this passion. We have this desire. We've been sort of potentially pushed into it by some external situation. And then we find a solution and then we're like, no, I'm not quite ready. So we run back. And we could do this a few times. We might have a few consults with people, or we might have a one-off voice lesson with someone or a one-off singing lesson. And then the ego gets scared and it's like, no, this is scary. Let me run back. The ego's favorite excuses are, I don't have enough time, I don't have enough money, and I'm not ready. So if you ever use any of those, you know it's the ego talking. We've all been there, including myself. So this is no judgment, but it's just to understand, when I go through this, where am I on this journey? You know, things that I say I want to create in my life, where am I on this? Am I still in that kind of resisting and not allowing myself to move towards something? Or am I in stage 4, which is the mentor or coach or teacher? So someone comes into your life. So you finally hire a coach, hire a teacher, find a mentor, go on a program, whatever it is, you sign up to something, you find someone, or maybe you just start watching videos on YouTube, but you're seriously now invested. You're like, okay, I really want to do this. And this is that meeting of someone that you really connect with, that can actually really show you the path. So again, in the voice situation with that, sometimes some of these clients that sort of ghost me for a while, they do come back eventually and they're like, okay, now I'm ready. So that would be number 4, mentor, teacher, coach, someone that can guide you on the path that you want to go down. Now, number 5 is crossing the threshold. So this basically means that you take some action where there is no turning back. So using Tony Robbins' analogy, we burn the boats. So you can't go back. So maybe you put a deposit down for something. Maybe you sign up to speak at an event and you've signed a contract. And it might be, this is what I used to do actually when I first started on this journey. When I first started doing professional shows as a singer, I would sign a contract that I knew I couldn't get out of, even if it was for like 6 months, 8 months in advance, because I knew then I was committed to this journey. Even if it terrified me, even if I didn't know how the hell I was going to do it, it was like, once I've signed that contract, there's no turning back. So this is Again, I think you really do need a coach or a teacher, because I should add, this is not a journey you can go on by yourself. No man is an island. It's so challenging, this journey. Any change, anything we're trying to create in our life, where we're trying to create lasting change, is going to bring up enormous amounts of fear and enormous amounts of resistance. So you do really need a coach or a mentor to guide you. So I've always had coaches and mentors in some shape or form for, well, certainly the last 10 years. So you sign a contract. And so that's what I used to do. I'd sign a contract for a theatre. I might put a deposit down as well, because it depended on the theatre, whether I had to. But I would be signing a contract, and that was kind of it. I mean, of course, you sort of can get out of it if you had to, but you're not going to. You know, it's fairly committed. So that's the next thing. So you sign up for something, you make a deposit, you sign a contract, you take some bold action that you can't really get out of. So number 6 is test allies and enemies. And this is where now you've committed to something, whatever it is, and now you're starting to move forward towards your ultimate goal. So using the voice analogy, you know, you've signed up for voice coaching, and maybe simultaneously you've also decided, for example, to start a podcast, or sign up to do a TED talk, or agree to do a big keynote speech, whatever it is for you. And then all of that sort of resistance starts to show up externally. Sometimes it's internal fears, but often it shows up externally in family, friends, peers, well-meaning people that start to put doubt in your mind. Are you sure you're ready to do that? Why did you spend so much money? You know, you don't have time to do this. You need to be doing this at the moment. So all of this sort of resistance shows up, both in terms of what you're telling yourself, and you'll start to notice it in the people around you. And I've had, you know, again, when I work with private clients, all of this fear will start to come up. You know, what have I done? I've spent all this money, blah, 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 blah. So it's just the normal ego reaction to you moving forward and moving towards your highest self. Another really common one I see with this, with voice clients, is they might get sick as well. So we start working together. Within a couple of weeks, they lose, I say they lose their voice, I mean, not from the voice work, but they get sick. So then they might get laryngitis. And it's so interesting because it's really not random. And I've also had clients that have, you know, lost family members, or suddenly someone in their family gets really ill. So there'll be either sort of indirect resistance from the external, or direct resistance, or all of your own thoughts and fears will start to bubble up to the surface. So again, it's just this resistance, which, as I said, is why you need a coach to be on this journey. Now, number 7 is the approach to the innermost cave. Joseph Campbell's got this really famous quote that I love, which is, "The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek." And this is where we are on this journey now. So you've committed to this journey, you're moving towards this goal, but you know that moving towards this goal means you've got to face something that you've probably spent your life avoiding. So maybe it is putting yourself out there in front of a massive audience, and you've spent your life not doing that because you fear being criticized, being shamed, being ridiculed. You know, it's that kind of like what Brené Brown talked about when she did that talk, her very first TED talk, which then went viral. She thought it was just, you know, a couple of hundred people were going to see it, and suddenly like millions of people saw it, and she wasn't sort of prepared for that. So then she had what she calls, I think, her vulnerability hangover. And so this is kind of what happens. So we begin to move towards this cave, this proverbial cave, that we know we've got to enter. We've got to face something we have spent our life running away from. Now that's going to be different for different people. Certainly for me, when I think about, I mean, we can kind of be on this journey for different things in our life, but certainly for me as a professional singer, you know, actually doing my first professional show was for me entering the cave, because I'd never done anything like that before. I'd never been 100% responsible for a show and singing and organizing everything and selling tickets and doing everything. So that for me, I think, was entering that cave. So it's going to vary for each of you, but it's something that you have spent your life trying to avoid. Number 8 is the ordeal. So this is where you really then have to face off with this shadow. And this is why shadow work is a big part of my coaching, because there is always something that fundamentally we're trying to avoid. We're trying to avoid upsetting people. We're trying to avoid being criticized. We're trying to avoid being shamed, whatever it is. But we have to face it because we have to see it's not really real. It's like this sort of make-believe dragon in a cave, or the monster under the bed when we're a child. It's not really there. When we shine a light on it, we realize it's actually nothing to really fear. But the ego really talks us out of this stuff because we really believe that this criticism is going to kind of cripple us. But this is why this work is so important, because when you start to see that we are all one, we're all connected. So whatever you perceive in other people is really just your own mind, then it really diffuses the fear, because it's like, well, the criticism I'm observing externally is really my own criticism towards myself. So when I bring compassion to me, what happens? Either people stop criticizing you, or you just genuinely don't notice it, or it doesn't bother you. So this will be a really intense experience. It's not going to be comfortable. It's going to be almost like skin crawlingly uncomfortable, not like physically painful necessarily, but there's going to be something very, very uncomfortable that you have to face. And again, this is why you need to work with someone, because if you try and do this by yourself, you will probably not even get to this point. And if you do, you'll probably just run back to your ordinary life. And then number 9 is the reward. So you face the proverbial dragon in the cave and you realize it wasn't that scary after all, and you get the reward. You do an amazing TED talk, you start your podcast, you sing on stage, fill in the blank. But more importantly than that, you have transformed on such a deep level. You're not the same person as you were on day 1 of this whole journey. And that's actually more important. As I said, this isn't an ego journey. This isn't about attaining things externally. They're sort of like a byproduct of the process. But actually what happens is you connect to yourself in such a powerful way that nothing really stops you anymore. Nothing really scares you, because you realize and you really get that the external world is a reflection of you anyway. So there's nothing to fear. Number 10 is the road back. So you've been on this journey. And what I have found in my own process of this is often when we're on this journey and we're doing a lot of inner work, we tend to potentially isolate ourselves a little bit from people. Maybe we don't have as much contact with people that aren't on this journey. I've certainly noticed that in myself. I try and surround myself with people that are on the path as well, because they get it. And I try and distance myself a little bit from people that aren't on the journey, because it's hard enough as it is without being surrounded by people that might try and, with good intention, pull you back. But then what happens is you do have to at some point go back to your ordinary life. And, that might mean changing the kinds of relationships you have with people. You're probably not going to be the same person that you were originally with that person. So it's about now integrating yourself back into life, maybe back with your family. Maybe you've got different kinds of relationships with your family now. No longer are you a pushover. Now you really have, you stand your ground, you speak your mind with love, with compassion, but you're not the same person. So this road back can be challenging. And so number 11 is the resurrection, which is actually a kind of further ordeal in a way, because now we have to kind of, as I say, sort of integrate ourselves back into our ordinary life, but we're a changed person. And so that can bring up a lot of fear. It can trigger a lot of our family and friends around us, because they don't really know who we are anymore. It's like, well, who is Anuska? I preferred the girl that just sort of flew under the radar and didn't say very much, but now she's got opinions. Now she's out there and she's expressing how she feels, and it's a threat for the people around us. So it can bring up a lot of anxiety as we try and sort of reintegrate back into our ordinary worlds. But we are a different person, so we're not triggered in the same way anymore. We totally see now that we're just seeing ourselves. And so we come at it with a whole new perspective and a whole new power and strength that we never had before. And then finally, number 12 is the return. So we come back. And what I love about this final section is because we come back a different person, we really come back with a whole new perspective on life. So we've gone through all these trials and tribulations and, maybe ran out of money or like nearly lost a deal or something massive might have happened along the way. But we've grown so much that we come back to our ordinary life and now we want to help other people. So now life becomes about, really trying to inspire people and being of service to people, less about the ego desires and more about the kind of the higher desires. So we really come back now with wanting to help and support people, particularly the people around us. We really want to inspire them. So this is the path of lasting change. And this is why most people won't do it. We'll maybe get to step 4 or 5 and then we run back, and then we might keep going back and forth for a few years. But it is so hard trying to do this by yourself for all the reasons I've mentioned, because you are really having to face off with yourself. And the things that you've got away with running away from your whole life, avoiding certain things, you can't do it anymore, because what you want to create is on the other side of that fear. So you do need to work with a coach, a mentor, or a teacher that can guide you in whatever it is you want to do. But as a voice coach, as we think about, our voice is an outer reflection of our inner world. So as we grow, as we have this internal transformation, our voice changes. We show up differently. We speak differently. We don't put up with things in the same way anymore. We're not afraid to express ourselves. We're not afraid to upset people. We're not deliberately trying to upset people, but we're not afraid to upset people. So we just show up in a completely different way. And that also translates into the voice. So the voice becomes stronger, becomes freer, becomes more open, becomes more clear, because we're no longer hiding. We're no longer, I want to speak, but I don't. I want to express this, but I don't. That's what's going on for most of us until we awaken to this shadow part of ourselves and we learn to integrate it. But this is really the shadow process in a sense, dressed up as the hero's journey. Hero's journey sounds a bit nicer, to be honest. So if you are interested in this, if you are ready to go deeper with your voice, have that inner transformation so that there is no micromanaging your voice. What should I say? What can I say? How should I show up? You really just own your voice. You are unshakably confident. You are not afraid to express yourself. Then my coaching is the process for you, because essentially that's what I'm taking you through in my coaching, is the hero's journey of sorts, because I'm going to really encourage you to come out of your comfort zone, to not only do the physical aspect of training your voice, but to really move towards something, a big goal where your voice is required, and really support you and encourage you to step forward and allow yourself to really be heard, but not from that ego defense place, but from that true power, from that true place of confidence and wholeness. So there's none of that sort of defense that we often get when people are like, oh, well, now I'm going to just speak up because I've spent my whole life shutting my voice down. And there's a lot of sort of defense and resentment with it. That's not what I'm talking about here, because when people are like that, there's no integration of the shadow. They've just persona swapped. So if you are interested in going on this journey, I would love to speak to you. I'm so passionate about this journey. You can book a 30-minute voice discovery strategy call, which, as the name suggests, is a strategy call. It's not a coaching session, but I will give you some insight, understanding and awareness of your voice. But more importantly than that, we'll talk about your goals, what you're really wanting to achieve, where you really want to go, and how I can really support you on that journey. Or you can book an actual coaching session, Reclaim Your Voice. And if you really want to have a direct experience of my coaching, like what does it mean to do shadow work? How does she help me with my voice on a physical, from the physical side, then you'll get to experience that in that hour. So the links are below, all the information is below. This is a transformational journey. This is so much more than your voice, which is reflected in the investment. So, you know, if you're looking for just a few exercises, honestly, you can get them off the internet. If you're looking for a deep, lasting transformation, this is the place to come. So thank you so much. I hope you found this useful. Let me know in the comments how you go, and we'll see you next week.